All right, what up, AP people? This is a really quick run through of Chapter 27 and some of the key highlights. So let's begin. Okay, Chapter 27 is all about empire and expansion. America looking outward. Okay, reasons why America turns outward. Well, farmers and factory owners are looking for new markets. Okay, so as we become a more industrialized society, one of the benefits of industrialization is producing more stuff and having surplus goods being made, and so you're going to need more markets to sell that stuff to. So we're going to have to look outward to sell our surplus to. So that's going to help us create or have a need for an empire. All right. Yellow journalism. William Randolph Hearst and Joseph Pulitzer are going to be hugely influential in making conquering other areas look more like an adventure. Okay, missionary zeal. Missionaries are going to be anxious to proselytize American-style Christianity to the world, inspired by Our Country, Its Possible Future, and Its Present Crisis, a book by Josiah Strong. This is going to be very, very influential in getting Americans to start thinking about spreading, our religion abroad. And that's going to be, and that's something that goes back to the 3 G's that we talked about with Spain, God and gold and glory. Spreading the gospel abroad is going to be a huge impetus or a huge reason why people are going to create empire. All right. Social Darwinism, this belief that the earth belongs to the strong and the fittest. Theodore Roosevelt and Henry Cabot Lodge, these guys are going to be hardcore social Darwinists. And this, once again, is a kind of imagining of what Charles Darwin really wrote as far as his, theories on evolution, natural selection, adaptability, and all that. So those ideas are going to be then applied to human society in a very kind of wrong way, but it's going to use to justify why some people are able to conquer others and why some nations are able to build other empires and why other nations become part of other empires. Okay. Something that's really, really influential is going to be this thesis by Alfred Thayer Mahan, called The Influence of Sea Power Upon History. He's going to use Great Britain as his example, and using that idea that the sea is vital to a country's power, and if you want to be a powerful nation, you need a powerful navy. So we had been very, very isolationist up to this point, and Alfred Thayer Mahan is going to argue that with the construction of the Panama Canal, the United States can no longer be as isolationist as it has been, and we are going to need to build a navy. We end up doing this. We end up taking over the building of the Panama Canal ourselves, and we create one large navy for the Atlantic and one large navy for the Pacific. So we take his advice. We don't just build one navy, we build 2. Okay, so that's another key idea here in Chapter 27. Make sure that you are familiar with that thesis. I think it's a great thesis to kind of understand, the broadening militarism of the United States, and I think it's fair game for any AP exam if they ask you about Alfred Thayer Mahan. Okay. Reason 6 and 7, kind of how we see our role in the world in Latin America. We kind of want to try to sell this idea that we're the big sister, that we are going to kind of help Latin America on its, journey to modernization and democracy, and the Monroe Doctrine is going to play a role in that. And then also with the open door policy after China's, trade doors are forced to be open with Great Britain winning the Opium Wars, then we want to piggyback on that to China, to the China market and say, China, if your doors have to remain open to Britain, why not keep them open to the United States as well? Okay, so there is also going to be a period of American near wars in Chapter 27. So as a result of our new aggressive foreign policy, we are going to have some near conflicts that are going to get resolved, usually by payments or other compensations. There's a mentioning of a conflict that the United States has with Germany over Samoa in 1889. This is solved on the islands. We're divided between them. Between Germany and America. We still have American Samoa today. We're going to get into a conflict with Italy over lynching of 11 Italians in New Orleans in 1891. This is going to be solved when the U.S. actually pays money to Italy for those 11 people who are lynched. America versus Chile, there's going to be 2 American soldiers killed in Valparaiso. This is going to be solved when Chile pays compensation to the United States. And then the United States versus Great Britain over seal hunting. And this is also going to be solved with arbitration. And this is going to be kind of an interesting time in American history where we have this time period called the Great Rapprochement. And rapprochement is a great word. It means, like the development of friendly or friendlier relations between 2 countries who might have been enemies in the past, but for some reason their agenda and stuff becomes more aligned. And so it's to their benefit to become friends. And for so much of our history, we had been enemies with Great Britain. We had seen them as our, imperial overseers. We fought a revolution against them, and then we fought another war against them in 1812. And it's here in the late 1800s where Great Britain is going to become our friend, And instead of twisting the lion's tail and making Britain angry, we start a period where the British are going to pat the eagle's head, and our 2 agendas are going to become very, very similar. And that's a relationship that still exists today. We were allies with them in both world wars, and they continue to be our friends today. And so the Great Rapprochement, something to kind of keep in mind as far as when our 2 countries become more familiar. Okay. We are going to get going here as far as where does the United States start expanding to first? And the first place you really need to kind of keep in mind is with Hawaii, all right? Hawaii is going to be a way station, a refueling station for shippers, traveling across the Pacific Ocean. It's going to be conveniently halfway between North America and Asia. And so this is going to be a really, really important area for the United States, and we are going to make sure that this is a sphere of influence for our overseas empire, and this is kind of the first jumping off point for American empire building. Okay, we're really interested in that base, Pearl Harbor. It's a perfect spot, about 2,000 miles out in the Pacific Ocean. When we had coal-fired ships, it's a great spot for them to stop and refuel, and it'll continue to be really, really important for the American Navy that we're going to build because of Alfred Thayer Mahan. Okay. We are basically going to engineer an overthrow of the Hawaiian government. There's going to be some things that make this happen. We had basically a free trade agreement with Hawaii where Hawaii could, export whatever it was producing to the United States free of tariffs. That's all going to change, though, with the McKinley tariff in 1893. And you're going to have a number of American landowners basically overthrow the Hawaiian government led by Queen Liliuokalani, and they're going to get American help from the Marine Corps to do this, and they're going to be successful in overthrowing Hawaii by 1893, and then by 1898 it will be a territory of the United States, and we'll make it a full-fledged state in 1959, but it's not obviously a state in 1941 when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. So definitely pay attention to that area in chapter 27 where they talk about Hawaii, because that is a great example of empire building. We take Hawaii because we want it and we want to make sure nobody else can get it. Okay. The next area that we really need to focus on is the Spanish-American War. Okay. The Spanish-American War makes the United States an empire. Okay. There is the United States before the Spanish-American War and then the United States after the Spanish-American War, and they are not the same. All right, so make sure you're paying attention in the book to our war with Spain. The war has started for a lot of reasons, but yellow journalism is a major reason. Those 2 publishers, William Randolph Hearst and Joseph Pulitzer, these guys basically really manufacture a war. Where we basically we want Cuba, we want to have more of a role in the Caribbean, especially as the Panama Canal is being built, and we're going to manufacture this war. In Cuba is The Cubans are going to rise up against their Spanish oppressors. Spain is going to still be the colonial ruler of Cuba. This is going to be one of the last areas of the once great Spanish Empire still ruled by Spain. The Cubans are going to rise up against them in 1895 after they were weakened by the McKinley Tariff. And the U.S. is interested in Cuba for a couple of reasons. They knew what it was like to fight for freedom. U.S. business stakes were really, really invested on the island. You had a bunch of American tobacco growers, American sugar producers, rice, all kinds of these cash crops that were really popular in the American South. They're going to be produced in Cuba and exported to the United States. And so, the fear for American landowners in Cuba is if this new revolution is successful, Spain had let these guys, operate in Cuba, would the new Cuban government also let them own land and operate in Cuba? And the fear is that it wouldn't, okay? So they wanted to, protect American interests there. All right, and then like I said, with the Panama Canal looking like it's going to be complete at some point, the Caribbean is no longer going to be, the backwater of all of the seven seas where, pirates go to hide their booty. The Caribbean will be a major thoroughfare between Europe and any, anyone really, not just Europe, but any traders wanting to get to Asia, which is pretty much everybody, okay? We are going to send the USS Battleship Maine. It's a brand new battleship to Havana Harbor to help Americans and to, protect American interests there. And the Maine is going to mysteriously blow up, and the United States will inevitably blame Spain for this incident. And, the famous call of the hour will be, remember the Maine, to hell with Spain. And we will declare war against the Spanish in April of 1898, okay? This is known as a splendid little war in American history. It only lasts a few months, I believe like 16 weeks total. We are going to win decisive battles in all of the Spanish colonies, but, one of the big ones is the Battle of Manila in the Philippines, and then another one in Cuba, the famous charge up San Juan Hill and the Battle for Santiago. This war is going to make the United States an imperial power. We will win the Philippines, Guam, Puerto Rico, and Cuba from the Spanish. And, it'll be a short time that the war lasts. We will have very, very few casualties. And, we'll get a lot from this war as far as overseas possessions, okay? Now, when the war is over, the United States promised Spain that they would not take it over. And with the Teller Amendment, we kind of make Spain a protectorate, okay? We allow the Spanish to kind of rule over themselves, but we reserve the right to intervene if we ever think that American interests are going to be compromised in Cuba, okay? So that is, not all totally bad for the Cubans. I'm sure they didn't really, really appreciate that. After fighting for their freedom, and then the United States comes in and says, hey, now we're your overseer. But eventually Cuba will become a free and independent nation, all right? The bigger problem of this whole situation is the Philippines for the United States. The Philippines are going to be our biggest pain. So like I was saying, the Philippines are going to be the bigger question for the United States, what to do with them. We had one major battle in the Philippines, and that was, this battle where Commodore George Dewey sinks basically and destroys the entire Spanish, quote, armada in the battle. Just takes a few hours. And after that, there is no real Spanish presence in the Philippines. And what does the United States do? Do we let them be free? Do we annex them? Do we make them part of our growing empire? And those questions are going to be big for our government. And we are going to eventually choose to take over the Philippines and annex them, okay? We don't think we can give them independence. They're not ready for it. They're not strong enough to stand alone. And we're really afraid that another imperial power will take over them if we don't, like the Japanese or the Germans might come in, And if we left them alone, then we feel like that would be somehow hypocritical, and we would set them up for failure. So we annex them, and the Filipinos don't appreciate that. It starts a long, long war now from the Filipino kind of patriots fighting against no longer the Spanish Empire for their independence, but now against the United States. So we go from their liberators to their imperial overseers. But there's plenty more to discuss about that later. For now, this is good. Let's stop here and we'll do part 2 later.